Now I'd like to call upon Mr. S. Prakash as our next speaker. S. Prakash is the CEO of IL&FS Solar Parks.
Good morning, everyone. Compared to my earlier speakers, my subject is going to be large-scale solar parks and how these are going to help the country in achieving its ambitious goal of 100 gigawatts of solar. So if you look at what we have been doing as IL&FS in this space, we were the pioneers in looking at how large-scale solar parks should be developed as a mechanism for enabling optimal risk transfer so that the solar power developers can easily come in and do a plug and play. So we have now set up 1,000 megawatt solar park at Badla in Rajasthan, and this park, as you would have read about, has been able to achieve significantly low tariffs in the country, below 2.5 rupees per unit. We have some outstanding partners who are going to set up the solar facility, and we will be managing the solar park for the life of the solar projects. Now, if you look at the sector as a whole, you have something like 100 gigawatts to be delivered. Ministry of Renewable Energy has come out with a roadmap in terms of what they intend to do, and in terms of procurement, it is now moved away from an FIT based into a competitively procured tariff, and this means that in order to obtain the best tariff, we need to understand the risk in developing these projects and how do we optimally manage that. The other thing significantly that the ministry has done is to enable production of solar power where it is optimally best. So in order to enable that, what they have done is they have made interstate transmission charges zero for all solar power which can be commissioned by year 2022. So this will enable developers to actually go in and set up projects where the radiation as well as availability of land is optimal in order to do a scale up. Now, if you look at three aspects of risk for a developer, first is land. Land is a big challenge in India. Land which is contiguous, which can develop large-scale projects, is a big challenge. So obviously, certain states and certain pockets in those states offer the best radiation as well as large tracts of land. Second is transmission connectivity. If you are talking about interstate transmission, then obviously you need the central transmission connectivity to be available in these places. And these typically take a while from the time you make an application to get these investments in place. And third, of course, is the power purchaser. And there are mechanisms which are now being built in to manage the risk of collections. There are intermediaries from the central government who will actually purchase the power. And this will enable, once again, one of the fundamental challenges that solar power developers face with respect to collection. Now, these are exactly the three areas that we work in. We enable bringing in large tracts of land. So, and we need that to go on a continuous basis. We work with the central transmission utility to enable connectivity to be brought to these large solar facilities. And we also help with demand aggregation, talking to the utilities and to third-party requirements, in terms of customers, to aggregate their demand and then bring it to the table for solar power developers to come in. Now, if you really look at how do we scale up, I mean, the last year has been a bit of a disappointment in terms of the amount of new bids that have come in, the amount of requirements that have come in. So what I want to outline in my presentation is a roadmap as to how we actually scale up. Now, the challenge for many solar power developers is that, and even for investors like us, is there has to be a clear roadmap. There has to be a mechanism by which the Government of India announces a certain gigawatt procurement plan over 5 years or 10 years. And that will enable a multitude of actors to come in sync, whether it is the central transmission utility, whether it is solar park developers, or whether it is the manufacturers to come in sync. So I think that is one critical point. The second one is we need to have some kind of multi-stakeholder meeting in order to enable development of solar parks and these facilities to come up in sync with the national aggregated demand. And obviously, how these state facilities in terms of solar parks needs to come up should be left to the state. And then the third issue is with respect to the central transmission utility. So once the geographical locations are identified, then the central transmission utility mechanism should preferably work through power grid in order to make sure that the transmission utilities are in place. And finally, we need to look at a central mechanism for procurement. Now, to look at policy support, I think the first transmission policy is already in place. The state solar policies in many states are being developed with a view to create these large facilities. And if you happen to come to Badla, please do visit our facility. We have also been able to catalyze the investment for local area development, and I think that is something which is not really marketed well. The amount of families which actually benefit when large solar projects come in is phenomenal. And the other issues which we would like in terms of an appeal to the audience and the panelists is there are challenges with large scale solar integration, and one of the things that we have been advocating with Government of India is to bring in policies in order to arrive at the right incentives and disincentives for grid integration, because this will enable new technologies to come in play, whether it is battery storage or whether some of the earlier colleague talked about grid stabilization facilities. And the last point is also about demand management actions, because at the end of the day, this is informed power, this has a particular characteristics. And if you have to integrate this, you clearly see a need demand side actions. And commercial price and signaling, in our opinion, would be the best mechanism to push this ahead. And with the support of state regulatory agencies, I think we'll be in a position to move towards the larger goal of increasing significantly our capacity in renewables and solar. So to conclude, we have the basic steps in play, and there are examples in this country. What is really required now is to continue this set of actions, get the risk perception for developers reduced as much as possible through solar parks, and also provide incentives for grid stabilization technology. So we are open to working with a number of technology players to set up demonstration projects in our facility. So we'll be starting power production sometime towards the later half of this year. So we welcome technology providers, battery suppliers to come and work with us to set up demonstration projects, so that we are in a position to actively work with the policy makers to bring in appropriate changes to the grid standards. Thank you.